Welcome in to Stop the Takes. Dakota and Austin here, and we are live on YouTube on Monday again. After saying this was random, we're doing it again.
We're
We
doing it again.
realized we're doing it again. Realized with the preseason and all the stories going on, kind of have to touch on this stuff immediately after the weekend, which will be our regular schedule. Coming up once the season starts, we will do preview shows every Thursday at 7, leading into that week's slate of games, leading you right into Thursday Night Football, and then recapping Sundays at 7, roughly, kind of when the 4 o'clock window is winding down, leading you right into Sunday Night Football. So a little bit of a different schedule here as we wrap up camp and preseason. Next week, we will be doing our full season preview show. So next Thursday, we'll be doing a full preview of division winners, award winners, Super Bowl, all that. And then the following week, we have football, man. We have football.
I'm excited for that preview show. Very excited for it because honestly, I was talking with you last week saying how, oh man, preseason's been a lot of fun, covering it and whatnot. I'm already tired of preseason. I want regular season football. I'm ready for the real stuff. So ready for that season preview and all the predictions and whatnot. Should be a fun show.
Yeah, there's only so many times you can watch quarterbacks that shouldn't be on a roster play football in preseason before it gets a little old.
Yeah, no doubt.
So we got a few things to run through on this one. It's going to be last one was kind of focused purely on the rookies, a lot of rookie debuts, how those guys played. We're going to touch on a few things on this one. Some quarterback battles, which are some involving rookies. And then we'll move into touching on rookie performances, some of the guys we haven't been able to touch on from our last video. There's a ton of guys to talk about. And again, prefacing this with apologize in advance for the guys we don't get to that are on your team that you love. I'm sure they're great too. There's only so much time to talk about these guys. And then we'll wrap things up with just kind of some other storylines going on outside of the preseason games that are kind of hot topics right now in the NFL. So without further ado, you want to dive into some quarterback battles?
Let's get into it, man.
So we'll start with the hottest topic, which is that Joe Flacco has been named the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns for Week 1.
Yes, very hot topic. I think the hotter topic of that is who's going to be QB number 2. Another report came out just recently. I don't know if you saw this, Dakota, from Adam Schefter, saying that it's very likely that the Browns keep 4 quarterbacks on their roster, which is a little bit surprising, dude. I mean, there was talk of Shadur or potentially Joe Flacco getting cut when people saw that they had 4 quarterbacks on the roster. I mean, technically they have 5 right now with Tyler Snoop Huntley. So, but it looks like Kenny Pickett, if they only keep 3 right now, is going to be the odd man out. But it seems like, according to Adam Schefter, that they're even going to keep Kenny Pickett, which is very interesting to me. But I think the main topic people are interested in is Dylan Gabriel versus Shadur Sanders. Week 1, Shadur Sanders gets to start, looked pretty good. And then week 2, Dylan Gabriel gets most of the time. And honestly, Gabriel, man, I think he looked pretty good outside of the one terrible play. Now, the one terrible play resulted in 7 for the defense, which is not good. That's like a really, really bad result. But he was commanding the offense. He led a couple scoring drives, and just overall looked comfortable out there, kind of like Shadur. But again, it's kind of a theme I've told you with these rookie quarterbacks in this preseason is they look good outside of one really bad decision. And Gabriel's was one of the worst we've seen out of the rookie quarterbacks. It was just not a good throw. He was rolling out, kind of staring his receivers down, and then just kind of floated in there and then led to a pick 6. So, but outside of that, again, Gabriel was pretty solid in week 2 preseason.
I thought he did look pretty good as well. Again, back to the comfortability thing we've talked about a lot, where like some guys just don't look comfortable back there. And I thought he did. He had one play where he kind of navigated up in the pocket, didn't scramble out, made a really good throw over the middle of the field. He targeted the middle of the field a good bit. Like, he definitely felt comfortable throwing there. He did have one, sack that he took too that wasn't great, where ironically, it was kind of that moment for everybody who proclaims about like the blind side and how the blind side's not a real thing, right? Like, it's so dependent on where the quarterback is looking, not naturally your stance. because he got hit from the left, which, as a left-handed quarterback shouldn't be your blind side, right?
No.
But he did not see Azeez Ojulari coming off the edge there and took a hit from him, which is something he can, get better at. But yeah, I think overall he played pretty well. I think he made things interesting based on how Shedeur played. I still think Shedeur played better overall in his week 1 game, but I thought Dillon Gabriel looked pretty solid. And the pick to me is still tough because to certain angles with that tight end who just didn't make an attempt to catch it. I don't know what was going on that play. They looked like two receivers were too close to each other anyway.
Yes, I will say they ran terrible routes. But Gabriel just has to dump that out of bounds. I mean, he's already outside the pocket. You can just get rid of that and not try to force a throw in there. But yeah, I agree. I think Shedeur was better overall. I think this last preseason game for the Browns, I don't know what their plan is. Like you said, they already named Joe Flacco the starter, but I think they need to completely split the time between Gabriel and Shedeur in this last preseason game because – I mean, we've kind of made this point on past shows, Dakota. One of these two rookies are going to play at some point in the regular season. Joe Flacco is likely not going to be the starter for all 17 games, and he really shouldn't be because you want to see what you have in these rookies in the real games at some point because the Browns have 2 first-round picks going into next season, and their plan is to potentially use that on a quarterback. But if you have a rookie on the roster who can already be a franchise guy, or at least is trending that way in Shedeur or Dillon Gabriel, then you need to find that out during the regular season. So I'm going to be very curious to see how their battle for QB number 2 plays out in this last preseason game.
Yeah, shout out Nate V in chat. He's able to tune in live and making a bold prediction that the Bengals will actually beat the Browns. I'm assuming, which is we'll
week
see.
1? They struggle in week
see.
1, so we'll see about that.
They do, and against the Browns, so that's just like the perfect combination of disaster there for them. But yeah, this is also a really good opportunity to talk about how, in an ideal world, if jobs weren't on the line, you would just throw these rookies out there immediately. But unfortunately, Stefanski and Barry are trying to not lose their jobs. And so at the end of the day, they're making the decision to start Flacco, thinking that's the most likely path to not having a bad season and not banking on a rookie going out there and performing well right out of the gate, which is unfortunate because that would let you find out more of what you're going to have for the future and if one of these guys could be good. But yeah, it'd be curious to see how it plays out. I don't think it's that bold to say we see both of them play at some point this season. I really don't think it's that bold to say that, but I do think it's almost the worst case scenario of where you kind of have to carry both of them. I think if especially if Shedeur just looked bad, they would have just been able to move on from him. But he looked really good, so you can't. And now you traded for Kenny Pickett, so it feels bad to cut him. So you kind of get stuck carrying 4 quarterbacks because of that. Because Snoop's obviously Huntley's the odd man out there.
I also wonder if a lot of the Joe Flacco decision wasn't just because of winning. I think they also don't want to throw a rookie right into the fire in week 1 of the regular season. I think that's part of it too. Give them some time to sit behind a veteran like Joe Flacco. I think that's why Joe Flacco won the job. I think if you and I would have predicted who would have won this job when they traded for Kenny Pickett or when they picked up Joe Flacco, I thought Joe Flacco was going to be the odd man out. But I think Joe Flacco is just that veteran presence, man, and they kind of want that for the rookies for a while. So so I think they plan to play both the rookies, like you said, because you do need to find out if you have a franchise guy in either one of these guys. And one preseason game, whether Shedeur fans think this or not, is not going to determine that. So we're going to have to see it in the regular season, and we're going to have to see a bigger sample before we know if either one of these dudes could be the franchise quarterback.
Yeah, completely agree. Let's move on to non-rookies. Let's move on to Anthony Richardson versus Danny Dimes, the battle of the century. So, Anthony Richardson, I think, has thrown like 18 passes, maybe I think it's like 14 passes in the preseason right now, and Daniel Jones has played substantially more. The injury obviously played a role in that. But I think my overall thoughts on that so far is that Daniel Jones has been a bit underwhelming. Mm-hmm. I think he's still probably your best option from a down-to-down consistency perspective, but I kind of expected him to look a little bit better in a situation that we talked in, in a video before about how it's the best that he's been in.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And the problem is that AR brings that insane elite high end potential as far as throws or like passes downfield are concerned. He had that incredible throw to Anthony Gold in the preseason game that was negated because AD Mitchell was offsides. And I might touch on AD Mitchell a little bit later because he seems to not be able to get out of his own way. And that's another example of that. But yeah, AR brings this huge play potential for the Colts, and Daniel Jones doesn't really bring that. But they both struggled like on the easy stuff. Like neither one of them have executed the easy stuff very well. And if Daniel Jones isn't executing the easy stuff, the wide open stuff, he missed wide open Tyler Warren down the field in this same preseason game, then you have to play AR. I think you should play AR either way, just because again the lack of experience and the lack of playing time, and again that's partly on AR, right? It's the injuries that are the number one concern, and then number two is the accuracy, and the accuracy again when it comes to the easy throws in football, the check downs, the 5-yard digs, things like that, things that quarterbacks should be able to hit on a consistent basis, and AR has not been able to do so. But Daniel Dimes is also not doing that currently. So, if that's the case, then AR is the easy decision in my opinion in this quarterback battle. But like we've been saying, dude, it's you're gonna see both these players play at some point. I would be floored if AR plays all 17 games this year. He's just never been able to do so. He's never been able to stay healthy for all 17 games. He got hurt week 1 of preseason. He just finds ways to unfortunately get hurt. So but as far as like who should play, I think it should be AR. He just brings bigger play potential. And again, you have the lack of experience that you kind of need to figure out more AR data points.
Yeah, I think at this point, if Jones had looked really good, then you would feel a lot more comfortable handing the keys over to him and just letting him handle the offense. But he just hasn't. He did. He just had misses in there without the high end playability that AR has. And I think the more I think about it, if you throw AR out there, more than likely he's going to play his way to the bench in one way or another. Like what we've seen tells us that, right? He's either going to get hurt or he's not going to play very well or tap himself out. And then you throw Danny Dimes in there and there you go. I feel like the other way around is going to be a bit tough though. If they started with Daniel Jones and he plays himself to the bench, you then have to throw AR out there. And then if he got hurt or then, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that situation becomes a lot tougher to manage. And with him being the guy you invested the 4th overall pick in, it does just seem like you need to start the guy. Like, while he is healthy, go ahead and put him out there. See if he can lead into that high-end potential play that you believed in when you took him 4th overall. And then fall back on Daniel Jones if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, I agree. That's the way they should play it. And honestly, this is something that I changed my opinion on based on this last preseason game because week 1 of preseason, AR gets a start and he comes down with this injury that was his fault, by the way, because he missed a protection. Yeah. And I think even the Colts organization at that point was probably leaning towards starting Daniel Jones. But this week 2 preseason changed this, and this is a quarterback battle, right? It's a horse race as far as who's going to start here. So it makes sense that things can change week to week. But yeah, right now I think the Colts and what I think they should do is leaning towards starting Anthony Richardson just to, again, see if he can put it together, man. Because if he can, there is a ton of potential there. But I'm interested in seeing how the health stand, how, from a health standpoint, can he stay in there and play meaningful? Because dude, he hasn't put together 4 starts in a row in the NFL. He just hasn't been able to do that. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. The depressing thing as a Colts fan, dude, is that the offense in particular looks really good. Like it looks really good. The weapons, Tyler Warren at tight end, I'll get into him a little bit more in depth later, but the receiver, like everything looks really, really good right now. So it's unfortunate that you don't have a quarterback that can hit these dudes who are schemed open, right? They're schemed open or they're just creating separation. And right now they don't have a quarterback on the roster that can just hit the easy stuff.
No, and Nate V over here in chat too, talking about hoping that they'd push each other with it being that close and could elevate AR. I do feel like that has been evident a little bit. You know, a lot of the stuff we've seen in camp, Steve and Sam from Check the Mic, I think both got to see them in camp, or both got to see some of the joint practices and saw AR where he has those moments of flashing, where he looks like unstoppable, but then just has those ridiculous misses. Which it's interesting because the accuracy is the toughest part to kind of refine, and Josh Allen is such an anomaly. And to be honest, you could kind of pinpoint Josh Allen as the reason that Anthony Richardson went fourth overall. Because
and Lamar, and even Herbert a little bit coming out of college didn't have the accuracy, but there's that stretch there of those players that made it seem like, oh, you can get in the NFL and you can get coached up and you can fix your accuracy, when it's just not, like you said, it's very unlikely to do so. And not to mention, Dakota, I think this is important when comparing him to Josh Allen. AR's baseline has always been worse. Like, the baseline has always been worse. Even when he played in the NFL, got to the NFL, Josh Allen, yes, was he inaccurate as a rookie in second year? Yes, he was, but not as inaccurate as Anthony Richardson. He was never that inaccurate. And plus, I have to emphasize this. The health. Josh Allen plays like a wrecking ball, but he never gets hurt. That's the thing. He's so durable, and AR hasn't been. So maybe AR, if he had played his first 2 full seasons, Dakota, like Josh Allen did, maybe he could have improved his accuracy at that point, but he hasn't been able to play the 2 full seasons. And that's been probably the main issue.
And that's the interesting part, because it's like, it almost doesn't matter if he's good or not yet, right? Because we haven't. It's irrelevant if he can't be on the field for it. So and you can't find that out until he plays a full season. So that's the thing you need to find out first, anyways. Can he even be healthy for 17 games? Because then if he's actually a good quarterback or not matters. Because if he is good, then you have something. But yeah, I mean, this is the easiest one to say without a doubt. Both of these guys will play probably by week 2. If we had to bet, to be honest, AR will tap himself out of a play or something. But no, I think it's interesting, because I do think, unfortunately for Colts fans like yourself, this season's going to be just summarized by the word frustrated. Because you're right, the offense looks good. There's weapons there. The offensive line still looks good even after losing, Will Freeze and Ryan Kelly. But a defense is sneaky good, and the division that's not very good. So, we'll see. I think, in the end of the day, I think it's definitely trending, unless he gets hurt, that AR will be the starter for week 1. But we'll be curious to see if he can put it together, Yep.
All
right, let's move on to, really briefly, we'll touch on Jackson Dart and Russ, which is not quite a battle, but kind of. More so in the, how short of a leash does Russell Wilson get, and how short is Jackson Dart making that leash?
I think Dart's making it extremely short. I think, and listen, Russ has looked good too. I mean, Russ looked really good in that preseason game. He had that incredible throw downfield. But dude, Jackson Dart has been really good. I mean, he's commanding the offense. And the most impressive thing to me about Jackson Dart's last performance, dude, was the quick decision making. I mean, he's going like progression after progression very quickly and getting rid of the ball very, very quickly. He didn't make a ton of plays downfield in this game, but I mean, just commanding the offense, running the offense, again, leading 2 different scoring drives. It was extremely impressive from Dart. And I think Russell Wilson's leash is extremely short at this point, Dakota. I think by week 4, we were saying like mid-season mark, we'll see Dart. I think if week 4, if the Giants are 1-3 and Russell is not playing well, then I think we're going to see Dart early, man.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, he's been very impressive to me. Somebody that I didn't necessarily think was a first round pick. And the Giants liked him enough to trade back into the first to get him. But he has looked really good. And I think you're right. Like, the decision making, and you've touched on this point numerous times when you and I chatting, but like, all of those questions around, can he run an NFL offense? We get caught up in that a lot with these rookies, but they've never been asked to. It's like assuming somebody can't do something just because they've not been asked to do it yet. And I feel like it just the preseason, but I feel like, he's kind of proving that he can handle it. And he's making quick decisions. He's making good throws. He's been pretty accurate so far. And yeah, they're, you mentioned this before we hopped on here. The Giants have the hardest schedule in the NFL, and that
Yep.
is kind of unfair to Giants fans. Feel for you. But because of that, I do think, looking at the beginning of their schedule, like, we could definitely see him starting week 5 because their schedule starts with at Washington, then they go to Dallas, and then they get the Chiefs at home, followed by the Chargers at home.
I mean, that
That
could be
is a
0-4.
brutal start. Yeah.
If they're 0-4 after that start, we're seeing Jackson Dart, I think, by week 5. Because I mean that is an absolutely insane start, and even if they're 1-3, and I don't even know if it'll matter if Russell's playing well or not, frankly, or how bad he's playing, because this is a regime more than any other that needs to win this year.
Yeah.
But dude, I mean, and it's preseason. It's only 2 games as a sample, not even full games. But the young talent that the Giants have on this roster, paired with Jackson Dart coming in and looking like he can run an NFL offense, which was his biggest question mark coming out of Ole Miss, I think the Giants, I mean, I really feel like Jackson Dart at this point can potentially save Brian Daboll's job. And Brian Daboll has been, he hasn't been the best with every QB he's coached, but remember, he coached Josh Allen on Josh Allen's come up, and he's already got Dart looking good. Like, I think with this young talent, man, the Giants could be sneaky good towards the end of the season, if Dart ends up replacing Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting one to see play out. And yeah, I completely agree. I do think those two, Joe Sheen and Brian Daboll, are probably the 2 hottest seats in football this season, or in the NFL. Because to be honest, it's kind of surprising they even survived this past season. I think some wouldn't have been surprised at all had they been fired after getting the 3rd overall pick. Cool. So let's move on to the last one. And this one won't take as much time, but we got to touch on it, right? Tyler Shuck and Spencer Rattler. So, this past game, Shuck played a good amount in the first preseason game, and then Rattler played the majority of week 2. And honestly, he looked a little bit better than he did in that first game. Shuck had a few moments in there. He had like a classic Shuck play, as we'll call him now, where he had like a stumbled himself into a sack, which was not ideal. But I guess what are your thoughts? Well, this is the last time we'll touch on Shuck and Rattler, but what are your thoughts after week 2 of the preseason for that battle?
Yeah, man, I think they're gonna play Shuck. I think that's just kind of the plan. It's, I don't think either one of them have like really put themselves apart in this battle, frankly. And they're not getting a ton of help either. It's not like it's a loaded offensive roster. Even though the rookie tackle is playing well, Kelvin Banks, but yeah, I think they're going to play Shuck. I think they want to know what they have in Shuck, even though Rattler's younger, which is insane to me. Drafted, a year before, but younger than Tyler Shuck. But yeah, I mean, you're going to get those Shuckisms. That's what he does. And there's not a whole lot of special in there either. There's really not a whole lot of special in there from either one of them so far this preseason. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But again, if I'm a Saints fan, maybe scout those 2026 QBs.
And it's interesting because both of them have a decent like completion percentage in the preseason, but yeah, like the high end plays quite haven't been there. Shuck made a decent throw against the Chargers, but there hasn't been a much special in there, and a few turnover worthy plays. And to be honest, it may also, especially from Shuck's perspective, Rattler has been there for a minute, right? So like he doesn't really have an excuse to not have developed to get better. But Shuck is now thrown into what we considered the worst situation in the NFL. So to be honest, it's kind of difficult to even evaluate him based on the fact that, to your point, like he doesn't really have weapons around him, doesn't have much help going on there. He's kind of set up to fail, which is unfortunate for him. But I do think, I agree. At the end of the day, you drafted him in the 2nd round. Rattler, you saw him last year. He wasn't getting it done. It's time for Shuck. And I do like Nate V's hashtag there. That could trend. What the Shuck? For everybody.
I love that, dude. I love that.
Yeah, that could trend, and they'll probably be saying it a lot, all Saints fans. So, all right. Any other thoughts on any quarterback battles before we move on to just rookies?
Nope. Let's get into them rookies.
All right, let's move on to rookies. Let's start with the fourth overall pick. We haven't touched on him really much at all. Old Will Campbell for the Patriots. They're booking left tackle now, one of the blue chip players that had, half an inch too short of arms. So people raged about it. But what have your thoughts been on Campbell so far?
He's played really well, man, and I'll say that I can already tell by the little bit of preseason that this Patriots offense is going to be a whole lot better this year, man. It was awful last year, but with the additions of Will Campbell and Henderson and Drake May year two and Kyle Williams, like this offense is going to be very much improved from last year. And Will Campbell's a huge part of that. We'll say all the time, the offensive line is what makes the run game. Now, great running backs can make a difference, but only behind a good offensive line, or at least a serviceable offensive line. And, of course, Will Campbell plays left tackle, which many believe is the most important position on the O-line. At the very least, it's tied with right tackle as the most important position on the O-line. And he's looked really, really good through preseason. Obviously, again, with all of these rookies, it's preseason. We have to see them against elite edge rushers in the NFL to see what he's really like. But it's always good when a rookie tackle comes in and plays well immediately, even if it is preseason.
Yeah, and he has looked really good. He's only played 29 snaps, but even with his PFF grade, small sample size, but he's been really good at the run game and pass blocking. He hasn't given up a pressure. And so, yeah, to your point, like him coming in could be a massive improvement for this offensive line in two factors, in terms of keeping Drake May upright and also now blocking for what looks to be their star running back, which we can go ahead and touch on him. Because, yeah, Will Campbell's looked really good. He's looked the part, but, man, Travion Henderson has hit the ground running, literally. Yeah. That dude has been crazy.
I will actually be shocked at this point if Travion Henderson isn't good as a rookie. Like he just looks like he has NFL explosiveness, man. That's what it looks like to me. And he's flying up fantasy draft boards. Like people are, I know you picked him up in your dynasty league, so I'm sure you're happy about that. But yeah, dude, he's just looked incredible. I mean, he looks like he's going to be a difference maker for the Patriots. And that's why Will Campbell, we're talking to them back to back because they're tied together. Will Campbell's performance impacts Travion Henderson's. But if you can open it up for that guy, he needs a small crease and then he can go, man. That's just the way he's looked so far in preseason and in his college days. But I mean, it's just been impressive when even in a preseason setting, if you get on an NFL field and show that kind of athleticism, it's extremely impressive.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It comes back to we always talk about, like, people wanted to do the whole, could the best college team beat the worst NFL team? And the answer is massive no. But, like, even the guys that are on that field for a preseason game are still NFL caliber players, whether it's the first or second string. And to look as explosive, look as quick, look as fast as he has is impressive. And it is hard to kind of imagine him not looking that way as the season goes on. I could see the productivity dipping slightly when they do have to face, starting defensive lines and stuff more, where the offensive line may hold him back a little. But overall, like the guy looks ridiculous. And I don't know if he's going to, at this rate, he'll probably be their starting running back. I mean, it's kind of hard to put Ramondre over him. And I wonder if they're still going to want him to return kicks, but maybe because they don't happen that much anymore anyway. It's kind of like you kind of need to with the one that he returned for a touchdown. It's like, why not?
But, I mean, people have talked about it's smart to put running backs back there in the new kickoff format because it's kind of like a running play.
Yeah,
I mean, that's it's like the way they
zone run play.
Yeah, it's like a zone run play. Exactly. It's how the new kickoff is. So I think they should keep them back there because kickoff return touchdowns, man, they're so rare that's extremely valuable, dude. Extremely valuable. So he looks the part immediately. Looks the part. And that's impressive considering he's playing a position that's very dependent on his offensive line. Mm-hmm. But even with that, he just looks different, man. So I would be floored if he isn't the featured back in this offense. And I think he needs to be. He's going to be an X factor for the Patriots.
Yeah, for sure. And Nate mentioning Will Campbell's it factor, his mentality is phenomenal. Loved his draft speech when protecting his QB and completely agree. He's one of those guys where it's like, it's insane to me how much we wanted to make a huff about like half an inch on his arms, as if that's going to somehow change how elite of a player he was in college to the NFL. I'm glad the Patriots didn't overthink that, because
Yeah.
they now probably have, again, just preseason, but based on what we've seen and what we know of Will Campbell, will probably have their franchise left tackle to help protect their franchise quarterback. So, yeah, let's move on to, let's talk about Abdul Carter again.
Okay.
A clip was going around that, it's the high end or the low end. That's all you ever see of these guys. And he gets chipped by the tight end and gets just decleated, and then the tackle takes advantage of it to just kind of finish the job. And of course, everybody, I know you did too, you see the immediate overreactions to that, to basically be like, this dude's, he can't play in the NFL. He just can't.
Yeah, dude. I mean, the worst thing I saw was, the worst thing I saw was one of the like horrible Twitter, Twitter accounts out there posted that, hey, you can't have this happen if you ask Lawrence Taylor to give up his number. Which I'll say this, I don't like when rookies are asking legends to give them their number. I generally don't like that. Yeah. But that is a ridiculous thing to say, as if Lawrence Taylor never got decleated in an NFL game. I'm guaranteeing at some point Lawrence Taylor got decleated in an NFL game. And he just didn't see it. It's a learning moment, whatever. But dude, it's one play. Who cares? This is coming off a week 1 preseason performance that he looked completely unblockable. Abdul Carter is going to be just fine. It's a viral clip, like you said. It's something I'll watch my language, but for stupid Twitter accounts to take advantage of. But yeah, it means nothing for his NFL future.
Now, if anything, it's kind of interesting that they felt in a preseason game, the Jets felt that they needed to chip him.
Yeah, exactly.
It helped. They watched all 8 of his snaps from week.
They're already chipping the guy.
Dude, we can't run the offense if we don't chip this dude. So if anything, it just shows how good he's gonna be. Overreacting, but that's the game these days. You overreact. Got a few people joining. We got 6 watching now. I appreciate people who are tuning in live. Feel free to shoot some stuff in the chat. Like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff while you're here. We appreciate it. Let's move on to Genty now. Kind of the opposite of Abdul Carter, where week 1, everybody was overreacting to that, acting like he was good. And now week 2, he looks like Genty, because it turns out if your offensive line lets you get hit 4 yards in the backfield, it's kind of hard to do something about it.
Exactly. Genty's a guy, man, I just expect him to break at least 1 tackle per run. You really just, if you can open up 4 yards for Genty, then you're getting 10 to 15 to 20. Maybe he's going to bust it for a long touchdown. That's just who Genty is. And that's what he's showing, dude. He looked really, really good in week 2. It's just, again, I'll reiterate, and I'm not going to change my mind on this, even though he looked good this week. His O-line has to play well for him to be productive. That's just the reality of his position. But if he has a solid offensive line, Ashton Genty is going to be a difference maker. He's going to be one of the best running backs in the NFL. Because, the bad competition, whatever. If you turn on his Penn State tape when they're loading up 8 men in the box in the college football playoff, and he's breaking 3 or 4 tackles on a given play just to get 5 yards or 3 yards, that tells you all you need to know about Genty, and he's continuing that in the preseason.
And it could be very, very similar to Saquon, where even when he was in New York, he looked great, right? But he had to fight his way to average 4.2 yards per carry, because he's having to do so much more to make up for the lack of the offensive line's blocking. But yeah, he did look like Genty. He had more carries in that game. I think he had 7. But he had that one play where he absolutely trucked that safety that came up to try to make a tackle. Just classic Genty. Absolutely steamrolled the dude. So I think he's going to be fine, but I'd be curious to see when we're sitting here after the season, what the, fan perspective is on Genty, because if the offensive line isn't great, he could end up having an underwhelming season, and then people will overreact to it in terms of what he is, rather than what his situation was.
And it's very, like you said, you brought up Saquon. It's a great comparison, because Saquon was drafted number 2 overall. In that draft class, he was considered the best player, regardless of position, he was considered the best player. And to your point, he was never bad in New York. He didn't have a
Mhm.
breakout season last year. He was the same player. The difference was the players around him, specifically his offensive line. So yeah, it is going to be interesting to see Genty, and obviously we're going to be covering it during the regular season. So that's going to be exciting to see how he plays. But I expect him to be good. But I wonder if the production is going to be there, the high level production, just because of the team around him.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll see. I'd be curious to see how it plays. I mean, I'm rooting for him. Obviously, we all are. But
Yep.
Let's move on to your guy. Let's go ahead and talk some Tyler Warren, who has looked. To be honest, he's looking like the decision to. And Loveland has also looked good. We'll touch on him later. But it's kind of looking like there was the clear number one tight end that we all kind of assumed that was going to be off the board, and it seems like he's kind of backing that up so far.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, dude. He looks like there's not a lot of difference making tight ends in the league. There's usually about 4 to 5 at any given time. And it's really been like that the entire time we've watched football, man. There's never tight end's not a deep position. But
It's a cliff usually after
Exactly.
those guys too.
Exactly. There's a lot of solid tight ends, but they're not difference makers. The thing is, if you have a top 5 tight end, it can be a difference maker in an offense. I mean, we saw that with young Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. We saw it with Gronk and Brady. A tight end can be a difference maker in an offense, and Tyler Warren so far looks like he can potentially be that. Especially when you pair, because we're just adding data points, right? This is all preseason doing right now. We're adding data points to what we thought coming out of college. Well, a lot of people out of college thought Tyler Warren was one of the few blue chip players in this draft class. But since he was tight end, he didn't get the top 10 hype or whatever. And he's continuing that, man. He's phenomenal. I mean, even in practice, preseason games, we mentioned earlier he was basically streaking down the sidelines, and Daniel Jones missed him by 5 yards. He's open, man, and he's very QB friendly. He's going to be the easy button in the Colts offense. Just like you need 5 yards here and there. There's Tyler Warren. He's open. And so yeah, I'm a Colts fan. I'm extremely excited about Warren. But yeah, he looks like he can be one of the few difference-making tight ends in the NFL.
And his route running ability, I think, has been the thing that stood out of where he can make plays anywhere on the field. Because to your point, like him streaking down the sideline, he's been open on a couple of deep outs and some corner routes that he got missed on or hit on. And then the thing that's so impressive about him too is just when he catches the ball, he just turns upfield. Yep. The dude's not he's basically finding contact. Like he will finish the play. Which you love to see from your tight end.
And that's and I'm not comparing him to Kelce or Gronk, but I'm just talking about elite tight ends here. That was what made Kelce and Gronk so good in their primes, right? It's the after catch ability. It's getting upfield after making the catch. So yeah, it's interesting to see. And like you said, right, he's always going to be compared to Loveland, who's also looked good, by the way. So I think this draft class overall has impressed me through the preseason, man. A lot of guys are looking good right now.
A lot have, yeah. And the other thing we haven't really seen from Warren yet, which makes sense that Steichen would want to save this for the regular season, is his ability out of the backfield, man. Like they can still do some creative stuff with him back there. So I'm excited to see what they do with him, and maybe he can be the security blanket for whoever is starting at quarterback or help AR kind of get into a rhythm.
Or maybe he'll replace one of them at quarterback. He was a high school quarterback himself. So
I'm sure he'll
just get him behind center. Just get him behind center.
I mean, honestly, just let him try. There's no harm in it. I mean, by week 10, maybe that's the best option. Who knows? But yeah, he's looked really good. Because we got our boy Nate V in chat. I'm gonna touch on a few Bengals for a second.
Here we go.
Yeah, because honestly, Shamar Stewart has not played a ton. He's only played about 18 snaps, but he's graded relatively well with his run defense. No surprise.
Yeah.
And he's looked decent. He didn't look bad. He got one pressure. I think he's still. Edge rushers are tough because like they project really well to the NFL. Like it's easy to know the guys like an Abdul Carter and stuff that are going to be great immediately. But some guys who still have it can take them a minute to get there. And I think Latu is one of those guys in that bucket where I think he can put it together. But when you start playing against NFL caliber tackles, it takes you a minute to kind of adjust, especially when you don't have like some, I mean, he's an athlete, but like a real step above them, like an Abdul Carter. And yeah, Nathan brought up the other guys I was going to mention, which are Barrett Carter and Demetrius Knight. they're both their the linebackers that they drafted from Clemson and South Carolina have looked pretty decent. So I think there's some positivity there for the Bengals on the defensive side. Shamar's still got a ways to go, but
he also needs to keep his hands off his quarterback. Let's
focus on the other teams.
Yeah. Don't be touching the franchise guy in Joe Burrow, son. Don't be touching him in practice.
And then one other guy I just want to touch on, because he's a guy I think we were both fans of, was, we liked all the Georgia linemen because they're usually pretty good. But Dylan Fairchild's not played a ton, but has also looked pretty decent. So shout out our boy Navy in chat there for a minute for those Bengals players. I don't think we've touched on any of them so far. So, all right, let's move on. Let's talk. Is there anybody else you want to talk on before we get to receivers? Because I know there's a ton of receivers to talk about. Is there anybody else you want to touch on before that?
Let's get into the receivers, man. Let's go.
All right, so let's start with Matthew Golden. Not a lot of hype around him so far in the preseason, but a lot of things coming out from camp of just talking about him in these joint practices, just smoking some defensive backs. And well, some were for the Colts in that joint practice.
Yes, they were. Our boys Sam and Steve were talking about it. They went to Colts Packers practice, and hey, we trust their football opinions, so we'll talk about it here on our show. Yeah, Golden has apparently looked really good in practice. He didn't play week 2 in the preseason, but he's looked good on on the practice field, which is important, especially in those joint practices, right? Because like sometimes you get more out of those joint practices, Dakota, than you do in the preseason games, because it's ones versus ones in those joint practices. Unless you're Aaron Donald and the Rams, you have to sit out because you're so dominant. But it's usually ones versus ones. So Golden's looked really good. I mean, listen, Golden could change the Packers. Like that's how to me, it's the missing piece for Green Bay is that dominant X wide receiver that they've been missing for years now. And if Golden can be that in the offense, and Jordan Love, by the way, is hopping up as well, which, you know, how much you want to weigh that, it probably doesn't mean much, but it is notable. But if he can go in and be that guy for Jordan Love and the Packers, I think, man, I think the ceiling of that team raises by quite a bit.
Yeah, and I agree. The camp stuff is interesting because it's one-on-ones too. Like you were going against another guy, and one was with Travarius Ward, who's a vet, and he kind of cooked him a few times. So I wish we had seen more of him actually in action in a game, though, just for the sake of the game time speed and how he looks, because he only has like one catch so far in the preseason, but everything is pointing towards him sounding like he's going to be a pivotal piece for this offense and maybe give Jordan Love and the Packers generally and a wide receiver one since Devontae's been gone.
The only thing I'll add to that is the one-on-ones for receivers and corners in practice heavily favor wide receivers, just because, I mean, that's like, that's press man on man, which is the hardest thing to do as a cornerback. So that's pretty tough. You have no safety help, obviously, since it's a one-on-one. So that is notable, but it is good, man, for the Packers if Matthew Golden's that guy.
Yeah, let's talk about a guy who was drafted before him, Emeka Egbuka, another guy who's gotten a lot of camp hype as a dude who's just looked legit and then had a really good catch. He had a touchdown in his preseason game, so he's looked the part as well so far.
It was interesting because Emeka Egbuka, from what I saw, was the first rookie to get a ton of hype from his quarterback, Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was talking him up like immediately in training camp, which again, I think is pretty notable. If he's standing out in practice and now it's translating to the game, catching a touchdown in last week's preseason game. Dude, it's another team that, like, I feel like you add Emeka Egbuka to this offense with Mike Evans and Baker Mayfield, they could do something special this year, man, with that offense. That offense all of a sudden is looking quite scary if Emeka Egbuka can plug right into wide receiver number 2 for the Bucs.
Yeah, for sure. And giving them that future proofing with the fact that, whether Chris Godwin's health or Mike Evans' age catches up to them, they may have a guy who could fill in and be better. Not to say that, but like, a guy who at least has that potential. So
I also think they can all three play on the field at the same time. You throw Chris Godwin in the slot, Emeka on the outside, Mike Evans. It's Looking good for the Bucks, man.
Offense could be scary. A Bucky Irving year 2. The
Yeah.
Bucks looking pretty good on offense. Let's move to honestly a trio of Detroit Lions receivers because they've had 3 guys who've all kind of looked pretty good in preseason so far. Dominic Lovett, who was, I don't know if he was a 5-star when he came as a recruit, but
I believe he might have been. He was
yes,
he was definitely a highly rated
4 at
recruit.
minimum. Yeah, and was at Mizzou, finished at Georgia. But he's looked pretty decent in the preseason. And then the 2 that have really stood out are Isaac Teslaw and then Jackson Meeks as well. I believe he's from Syracuse. But Isaac Teslaw has kind of been the guy who has stolen the show a bit in the preseason for the Lions.
He has. I mean, Brad Holmes is what a GM, dude. I mean, the ability to find these receivers with these specific skill sets and being able to unlock those skill sets. Like, you know, there was a lot of question marks when Ben Johnson left. And again, we're still in the preseason or whatever, but they are so good at unlocking dudes' specific skill sets, finding them in the draft, targeting those guys in the draft. And Teslaw he's been phenomenal, dude. He's looked really, really good. And another guy that can plug into a starting role in that offense, I believe.
Right.
I mean, you put him out on the field with Amon Ra and Jameson Williams. Those are 3 different skill sets that I think can work together. So yeah, I'm very interested to see what he does. I mean, remember, Dakota, this is a guy that they spent a lot on to go get him in the mid rounds. They spent quite a bit of draft capital to go get him, and the fact that they did that and pair it with he's hit the ground running in preseason, that's very notable, dude. Very notable to me.
And he's one of those high athleticism guys too. They went after the athleticism with him. It wasn't very productive, and to see a guy hit the ground running like that is one of those is a great sign as a coach and GM to say if we already kind of unlocked the talent out of this athleticism, then and he's a big body dude at 6'4", 217, but he's fast. And you're right, he can pair alongside because you can put J-Mo outside, put Amon Ra in the slot. You can move those 2 around depending on what you want to do. To be honest, he could kind of evolve into your true X if you need him to. And then Jackson Meeks has also been really good. A little bit smaller guy, but both of them have just been, they've played a lot in the preseason. Teslaw has 8 catches for 105 and 2 touchdowns, and Meeks has 11 for 176 and 2 touchdowns. Like, they have been getting targets and getting there and taking advantage of opportunities is, I think, the best way to put it.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too and notable that in the preseason with the backups, the offense doesn't seem to be taking a step back, which was one of the biggest offseason question marks with losing Ben Johnson, who was, kind of the genius behind that offense for a few years. So, and I'm very curious to see what Teslaw can do with the ones, dude. I want to see him in a starting role, out there against starting players with the number 1 offense and Jared Goff. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, it does look like another masterclass from Holmes, though. You're right. I mean, they just have a way of finding guys that fit their style of football too, man. Like, they have created a culture in Detroit. And I think if you've watched the quarterback series at all, anybody, like it's evident in that as well from listening to Goff talk and just talking about like what's been built there and the mentality they have is special. So let's move on to another duo of rookie receivers. Let's talk about the Chargers with Keandre Lambert-Smith and then Trey Harris, who've both flashed pretty heavily so far in the preseason as well.
A team that needed it, man. A team that needed it. You have Quinshon Johnson going down with an injury after a drop, by the way, which is, that sucks for him, but it is what happened. He dropped a pass and then got hurt. It didn't seem like that bad of a hit, but yeah, this is a team that needs receivers bad. They spent the 2nd round pick on Trey Harris after adding Ladd McConkey in last year's draft. And Trey Harris, a lot like Jackson Dart, both coming out of that Ole Miss offense. What is his skill set? Is he just a deep threat? Is he just going to be pinholed into that? He's shown in the preseason so far that that's not the case. And that's not even with, he's working with the bad quarterbacks on the Chargers roster outside of Justin Herbert. Plug him in with Ladd McConkey and Justin Herbert. I think Trey Harris' ceiling is extremely high.
Yeah, I agree. And at the end, you're right. They needed it. I think he can be an impact on this offense really early on. And Keandre's also looked pretty solid as well. I think both of these guys are going to get some significant playing time, and hopefully can morph into a role that, neither of them are quite what Johnston was supposed to be, but can at least replace what production was supposed to come from him in that offense. A couple other guys I want to touch on. Let's touch on our VFL, because he's another guy when it comes to hype has been getting hyped up. He's only had one catch so far in the preseason, but Dante Thornton Jr., who is already trending from everything I have seen to be a starting receiver for the Raiders this year.
And it's a light depth chart at receiver, so kind of makes sense. But we speculated around draft time if this could be Pete Carroll and Geno Smith's DK Metcalf. He has a very similar skill set to DK Metcalf. Big, huge receiver, 6'5", over 200 pounds, but can run a 4.3. There is probably like 1 to 2 people on the entire planet that can do that right now. So that's very impressive at his size. And yeah, dude, I think he probably will play significant snaps. It's hard to evaluate guys without their starting quarterbacks. And I'm not positive how much he's played. But I think with Geno and the starting offense, listen, the Raiders offense is intriguing. I'll say that it's intriguing. They have a bunch of intriguing weapons, and I'm curious to see who kind of like comes out of that as like, impactful players for them.
Yeah, he's only played 17 snaps. He's been targeted 5 times, so it's a low reception percentage rate, but I'm assuming he's been playing, he's not been playing with the ones as much, and probably taking, they've been a bit of deeper shots with him. Two more, we could talk about pass catchers all day, but a couple I did want to touch on that we touched on briefly is another pair, though, which is Elijah Aroro and Torrey Horton for the Seahawks, because Torrey Horton was another one of those sneaky guys. I know Sam was a big fan of him from Check the Mic out of Colorado State, and he's looked the part so far as well. And Aroro also, with his athleticism at tight end, a bit raw, but has looked pretty solid as well.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about Aurora. They're saying he could be a receiver. I mean, they're talking how he can be like an X wide receiver, which is insane. If you got that, I think they drafted him in the 2nd, if not the 3rd, later in the draft. I know that.
2nd, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there you go with one of their 2nd round picks this past season. So yeah, that would be insane if he converts to an X wide receiver, dude. So, and then Torrey Horton as well has looked solid. Didn't play a lot in this past preseason game, but again, a team that kind of needs weapons to step up, right, Dakota? I mean, you trade away DK Metcalf, and then you're kind of looking for this breakout season from Jackson Smith and Jigba, which I think he's due to have, and he started to have that at the end of last year. But yeah, Sam Darnold needs weapons. That's what kind of made it work in Minnesota, was a plethora of great weapons. And I think they found some in a couple of rookies.
I think so too, man. And yeah, it is interesting because it's, again, the body types of these guys just keeps changing. And Aurora is 6'4", 245, I think, is what he's listed at. And it's like, man, he is basically borderline Julio size. It's like if you cut 15 pounds, you're just a massive X receiver. So it'd be curious to see how they utilize him, but it does look like, which they needed after getting rid of DK Metcalf, if they do have Torrey Horton and Aurora can immediately make an impact on that offense, that'll be huge, especially for Sam Darnold. Make sure he doesn't start seeing ghosts again if he can see those guys instead.
I think we also got a shout out of Titan, Dakota. How about Gunnar Helm looking incredible for the Titans, man, playing with the 2s right now. But he looks like he could have been an absolute steal. A guy who expected to look better at the combine, but he tweaked his ankle. Like that was the thing. That's why he had all those bad workout numbers. He tweaked his ankle. He had that incredible contested catch for a touchdown. It was absolutely phenomenal. So Gunnar Helm looks like a little steal in the late rounds for your Titans.
He does. He's played 25 snaps, and he actually has a 90 PFF grade right now, which isn't saying a lot. But he's also been decent in blocking situations. But yeah, he had basically mossed 2 dudes in the end zone against the Saints. Yeah, but mossed the dude in the end zone, and yeah, I think. Or sorry, the Falcons. Not the Saints.
Falcons.
But yeah, he mossed two dudes in the end zone, which was it was a decent thrown ball, but he made a really incredible catch on that. And he has looked consistently really good. And you're right, I think he ended up running like a 4.9 because of his ankle being tweaked. And so it just
Yeah.
kind of people didn't know what he was, and I did think it impacted his draft stock a little bit. But man, it would be nice for him to hit because man, Chig has just not become what we thought he could be. Kroenke has just not really gotten there with his athleticism and his size. So it'd be nice if Gunnar Helm could come in there as a rookie and immediately become a solid security blanket for Cam Ward.
It's also another offense that desperately needs weapons, right? Like,
yeah,
it's Calvin Ridley and friends right now. They really don't have much else. I will say Ellick has looked really good as well. That's an intriguing guy. I mean, dude, this could be a franchise-changing draft for your Tennessee Titans this past season. But yeah, Helms looked really good. I know we got to touch on the Bears players. I'll start with Colson Loveland and then get into, I think, my favorite player from the preseason so far, Luther Burden. But Colson Loveland has looked really good, man. Again, kind of been that security blanket. I mean, Ben Johnson just does such a good job of getting guys open. And it already seems like he's convincing Caleb to hit the easy stuff, which is really good to see. And Colson Loveland's a big part of that. And they, I mean, they kind of need him to hit, right? You spent such a high draft pick on Loveland, but so far it's so good. But then Luther Burden, dude, how about Luther Burden? So I sent you a video earlier on X of a little post game presser from Luther Burden, little media scrum, if you will. He had the sunglasses on, he had the chain. He gives a kind of a just a not I won't say a diva like answer to a question, but it just seemed like he was giving off wide receiver number one aura for the rookie, which we've theorized for a while now, Dakota, that your wide receiver one kind of needs to be a diva, right? You want them to want the ball. You just want that from your receiver number one. And Burton's showing that. And then you add on the fact that Greg Olsen was given a ton of love on the broadcast, which was much deserved. Run blocking, he made a couple great plays run blocking to help the Bears score a couple touchdowns. Yeah, dude, he's looked really, really impressive in the preseason. And dude, I think he could be the guy that Rome Odunze should have been, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know you and I were both so high on him coming out of the draft, and it's just one of those that was baffling to me to watch him in college. And I guess because of the lack of production with the offense kind of dropping off there with Brady Cook getting hurt at Mizzou, just apparently hurt his draft stock because the dude has looked ridiculous. He's only had 5 catches, but he has 37 yards after the catch on those 5. Which of all the
receivers is what he was in college,
right
by the way.
Exactly, the Yak King, and that's something a guy like Caleb could benefit from greatly. Where if you can just get the ball into these dudes' hands, and DJ Moore has been pretty good as that as well. He actually took one of his first catches his first catch as a Bear was a screen for a touchdown. Yeah. So it's like if you can just get the guy the ball in his hands, Luther Burden's going to make plays, and I am so excited to watch him in this offense and see what Ben Johnson cooks up for this dude because. Oh my gosh. And yeah, Loveland has looked pretty good as well. I think there's nothing like negative to say about how he's played. It's just like Tyler Warren has looked better.
And they're going to be
and I don't want to make that. They are. And it's like, I hate to comp that because it makes it sound like I'm being negative towards him. But because that happened, he will always be compared to him because pretty much everybody had Tyler Warren higher on their board.
They did. And to my point earlier, Dakota, about difference making tight ends, there's not a lot in the NFL. But if you spend a top 10 pick on him, that's the expectation. Like, you're not spending a top 10 pick on a tight end to be a solid starter. And listen, we're not predicting Colson Loveland to be that. We have no idea. This is just preseason. We need a lot more data points to know, to be clear. But yeah, he needs to be that difference maker, or else the top 10 pick doesn't look as savvy.
Yeah, and again, he's played fine. He's been good. We'll see. He did have one. He had a good play in there on their opening drive. He was actually part of that drive with Caleb, where they looked pretty good. One other rookie I want to shout out. We touched on him a little bit before, but it's R.J. Mickens, just because of how many snaps this dude has played. Because they've played the extra preseason game for the Chargers, but the guy's played 158 snaps of preseason football already. Safety from Clemson. And he has a 91 defense grade with PFF, which for that sample size is enough to say that's kind of substantial. He has an 89 coverage grade, so that's a guy to keep an eye on. That Jim Harbaugh, dude's a defensive minded whiz, and he could take these guys and Eric Rodgers, who was looking good before he got hurt. He may
I
be
was about to
finding some
say.
gems in this draft class that
They're
could be staples to that defense.
they're doing a fantastic job of finding these defensive, especially in the secondary, gems in the later rounds, dude. And they needed the help in the secondary. So yeah, that's interesting. That's a pretty good sample at that point. That's about a game and a half sample. Actually about a 2-game sample. If you play about 80 snaps a game. So yeah, that's very impressive from Mickens so far.
Yeah. Any other guys you want to shout out rookie wise before we move on to storyline stuff?
Man, I can't think of anyone right now. We've touched on a lot of guys, so yeah.
All right, let's move on to just off-season stories. We're going to start with since we were just touching on them, let's start with the Bears.
Yep.
Because I have Ben Johnson on here. We kind of touched on it a little bit already, but I know it wasn't against the starters, but man, the offense looked methodical.
They did.
And Caleb looked quick decision make. It looked good in that first drive.
Dude, I'll be honest with you. I'm a little bit ashamed of myself for buying into some of the, and I'm not saying Caleb's good yet or not, but I'm ashamed of myself for buying into some of the camp struggles that have kind of went viral. Just because we shouldn't use that as a determining factor whether the guy's going to have a good NFL career or not. I think this preseason game, this half of preseason is so much more important. Like it is, even though it is against backups. It was the Bills' backups, but they also looked really good in, according to our guys, Sam and Steve, they looked really good in practice against the ones. Caleb Williams in the offense. So listen, 371 yards at the half in this past preseason game. I really don't care if that's against NFL backups or not. It's the NFL. That's extremely impressive. And like you said, it just looked methodical. Guys schemed open play after play, and Caleb was taking the easy stuff, which has been his issue, right, Dakota? It's been his issue going back to college. He kept trying to play hero ball, and you want a little bit of that. You want a little bit of that playmaking ability, but you don't want it all the time. And the problem was we're getting a little bit too much of that as a rookie from Caleb Williams, but it looks like Ben Johnson's already starting to coach that out of him. And listen, telling them, hey, listen, not everything has to be a touchdown. You can take your 6 yards here, your 7 yards there. And that's what it was in this preseason game, man. And like you said, it was methodical that whole first half. We just went through all their playmakers. The Bears offense, something to watch in 2025.
Yeah, I do think that's the hardest thing to coach out of these guys, because with the way that football has gone now, you take the most athletic kid in Pop Warner and you put him at quarterback, and then he learns how to play quarterback, and it's built on the idea that this kid can do everything. And it works in college most of the time, because when you are that good, you're still substantially better than the average defender out there in the college level. And so when you extend plays and run around, even back to like guys like Mariota, who was able to do that and make ridiculous plays in college, I do think that's the hardest learning curve for them when they get to the NFL, is like honing them in to say, that's not the game anymore. Like, you're not going to be able to turn every play into an explosive play, because that was kind of the mentality. And it happens a lot in college where it's like guys get it loose and then somebody's getting open or you can take off running. But in the NFL, that just doesn't happen. So got to take what you're given. And it does look like he's doing a better job of that. The offensive line looked like they were doing a better job already, which is huge, because Ben Johnson apparently showed up day one and said, you better fix this, Ryan Poles, because it's a problem. My quarterback's got to be healthy. And so overall, the offense looked good, and it does make me really excited to see what Ben Johnson is going to be able to do with Caleb Williams and this set of playmakers.
Yeah, man, I'm so high on Ben Johnson. I think the intangibles as a coach are there for him as well. Like we've talked recently about these like horrible opening press conferences for head coaches. Ben Johnson was the exact opposite. He just kind of walked in and owned it immediately. It's like, hey, I'm the guy here. I'm the leader. Follow me. And like you said, like immediately came in and told the current regime, we need a better offensive line. We do. We need it. It needs to improve because he came from Detroit, which is arguably top 2 offensive line in the NFL. So he knows what it takes on the offensive line to be great. And they did look a lot better. And Caleb looked a lot more comfortable as well. He just looked like he wasn't panicked in the pocket like he was last year. Again, it was partially him, but also a lot of it was the offensive line, and it kind of created those bad habits in Caleb because they were so at some points they were so poor last year. So I'm intrigued with the Bears offense again. After all, maybe buying a little too much into the camp highlights, him missing those little throws and whatever that net is or whatever. So yeah, I think the Bears are a very intriguing team with Ben Johnson and all these playmakers, which, by the way, I think have the potential to be top in the NFL. I mean, that might be insane to say, but it's a very deep group, and obviously we're really high on Luther Burden. So,
yeah, and I think keeping Caleb calm and collected may be the toughest part of his job because he's very Cam-esque in that sense, where he's very emotive. Lets the game affect his emotions pretty heavily. And I think if Ben Johnson can keep that under control, then I think you can keep Caleb playing well. One thing I already mentioned the quarterback documentary, so I have to mention this one too, which is just interesting. But, all the trick plays that the Lions did last year, one of the more intriguing ones was that one where they had the Jared Goff, pretended to stumble, and Jahmyr Gibbs did against the Bears. And what was very interesting is that play was designed around TJ Edwards, the linebacker for the Bears. So what actually happened was they saw on tape where Jordan Love had stumbled on a play, got up, and then threw a touchdown to the tight end because TJ Edwards didn't cover him. And so they literally designed that play around the fact that they knew he wouldn't do that. So sharing that for 2 reasons. One, it's hilarious that he's now coaching TJ Edwards.
Yeah,
and then
that is funny.
Two, that I think the trick plays are going to keep coming because he devises them around a player and what he sees on tape. So I'm excited to see what he can cook up with these guys.
First of all, that's an insane thing to do. That's literally a 1-play sample, and he's like, "Let me design a play around a 1-play sample." That's absolutely insane. Yeah, I mean, Ben Johnson's just he's very interesting, dude. I mean, this is a guy that I think could end up being a top 5 head coach in the NFL, especially from a schematic perspective. Like you said, those trick plays are going to keep coming.
Absolutely. So excited to see what he does. Let's move on now, if Nate V's still in chat, to Trey Hendrickson. So the news broke that he officially is basically, they kind of grant permission, but they're actively hearing trade offers. I don't think they've let Trey kind of go out and do that. But they are entertaining offers after the whole we're not going to do that thing, which is what every team does. They're like, we're going to get a deal done, or you're staying here, you're franchise tagged or whatever. But now they're open to offers. So what do the first question would be, do you think Trey Hendrickson will be a Bengal this year?
Dude, I'm leaning towards no, because it feels like the relationship is kind of broken at this point. And I think the Bengals are just kind of like the Shamar Stewart thing. They weren't budging on that. And then it ended up being, I believe, Shamar Stewart who kind of caved on that with the rookie contract talks. So yeah, I don't think the Bengals are caving here. And the fact that they're, we're a couple weeks from the season now, and now he's on the trade block, that's extremely concerning. I don't think they're going to pay him, man. I really don't at this point. I'm kind of curious if it would have been better for them to trade him around draft time. It feels like around draft time, teams are able to get more for players because the draft's right there, and then maybe a GM's like, man, I really love this player. I want to go get this player. Let me go trade for him or whatever. So yeah, it's interesting how the Bengals have handled this whole situation. At first they're getting praise, right, Dakota, in the offseason because they locked up both their number 1 and number 2 wide receiver, something that they haven't done in the past. They spent all this money on the receiving core. But it looks like the third piece in this this 3-way is not going to go the Bengals' way, and they're going to have to end up trading Trey Hendrickson.
It feels a lot like this happens a lot in the NFL where the communication is falling apart And it seems like the writing is on the wall earlier on in the discussions, and then they wait too long, and you end up not really getting anything out of it. It kind of reminds me of what the Cowboys do with contracts, where you always push it off, and then you end up basically getting the worst case scenario where you have to make Dak the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, where you could have avoided that. And I do agree. I think money does talk. So I do think if the Bengals just decide to give Trey what he's wanting money wise, he's probably going to stay. But it does seem like the relationship is fractured. And it does seem like they're just not budging, and he knows what he's worth and what he wants, and they're not moving on it. And they invested. He also had to sit and watch somebody else get the money invested in them. So it's kind of hard to come back from that relationship. And, I think it'll be interesting to see, because the Bengals hold the power still because he is technically still under contract. So it's a matter of what are they willing to do, right? If they really want to basically let him sit there and not play. And, if he's willing to do that. So versus if a team offers you a 3rd round pick for Trey Hendrickson, that's the best offer you're getting, which I would be surprised. But that would feel pretty rough if that's what you end up getting from this.
Yeah. And honestly, dude, doesn't it feel like, because again, they were talking about trading him during the draft. It kind of feels like to me, if they were going to get a first, then that would have already happened. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe he ends up demanding a 1st round pick. But yeah, this is more an off season discussion, but I'm curious on how you feel. I have my opinions on it, but how you feel about prioritizing receiver number 2 over your elite edge rusher. Because to me, I would have paid the edge rusher first. I just would have.
I agree.
Especially when you have something that only about 5 or 6 teams in the NFL have, which is an absolute elite top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. You already have that on the team. You already have that difference-making receiver. So at that point, in my opinion, I would have prioritized my elite defensive player, like really the only good piece on my defense from last season. And I know that Joe Burrow was putting pressure on them to sign T. Higgins and things like that, but that's why you can't let your quarterback make personnel decisions, Dakota. You can't. Like that's the GM's job. That's the organization's job. And listen, it wasn't an either or situation. They could have got both of these things done. But to me, I would have prioritized the edge rusher before wide receiver number 2 personally.
Yeah, I completely agree. And again, the Jamar aspect of that plays a huge role, right? Like if my wide receiver 1 was Calvin Ridley, maybe I do lock up my wide receiver 2. But when my wide receiver 1 is Jamar Chase, then it doesn't really matter who the second guy is, especially if your defense continues to give up 40 a game and you're having your star quarterback scoring 38 and it not mattering. So I'm interested to see. I guess there's a couple teams that immediately stand out to me. It's a matter, though, because I don't know how much control he's going to have over the trade, and if it's a matter of him wanting to even win or if he just wants money. But the two teams that immediately come to mind for me are the Commanders and the Titans. 2 teams that could use an edge rusher, especially the Titans. But it's a matter of, and they have the money. Exactly. They have the cap space, rookie QB deals. Those are 2 teams that stand out to me as potential options.
The Commanders are a great shout, and I think the Titans are too, but specifically the Commanders, because look at how they've run the organization the last couple of years. They've been very willing to give up draft capital to go get proven veteran guys, and that is 100% probably their number 1 position of need on that football team, in my opinion. So, yeah, I think the Commanders make a ton of sense, and it also makes a sense from a perspective of a team that you feel like can still win, right, Dakota? I mean, that's a team that literally just made the NFC Championship game, and if you can add a difference-making elite edge rusher like Trey Hendrickson to the team, then all of a sudden, I mean, again, that's one more like huge need from the Commanders that has kind of knocked off the list of needs on that team. So that would be extremely intriguing.
I like that one a lot. And the other one that I think probably the one that's going to be the most common is the Patriots, because they got Harold Landry, but I could see them doing it. It's going to be tough because he's not just like an old vet who's going to sign like a 1 or 2 year deal. He's going to want a 3 or 4 year deal.
Correct.
So like a team that came to mind that I would love to have happen would be like the Lions. But if they did that, you're not going to be able to pay Aiden after that. So you kind of put yourself in a tough situation. So the options are a little bit limited there in terms of where I think he could land because of the money that's going to have to be invested into him.
Yeah, that's a good point about the Lions because the Lions, not just Aiden Hutchinson, they got J-Mo to make a decision on him. They got Brian Branch who's
Jameer,
coming down the line. I mean,
Jameer will be up
yeah,
there.
exactly. Jameer probably end up being the highest paid running back in the NFL. It's like they've got a lot of guys to worry about paying, so I don't think they're in the market. But if Hendrickson was willing, if he just wants to get out of Cincinnati for this year, play on his current contract, then the Lions would be a fascinating option. But yeah, you make a good point. He definitely wants a long term security in his deal. I think that's the biggest issue with the Bengals right now.
For sure. Two other teams that is going to shout because I think the Panthers or Cardinals, again, they have the money and they lack edge rush. They've both invested on the defensive line quite a bit, but I think they would both be interesting ones. Right, let's move on to Matt Stafford. They've been dealing with a disc injury. I think they were calling it, what were they calling this injury? An aggravated disc in his back.
Okay.
The Rams have been pretty quiet about this. Like, there's not been a ton disclosed on this guy throughout the off season, but he didn't show up. He was supposed to dress and practice in one of these joint practices and in a preseason game. Never dressed out. Didn't really even practice. He is back at practice though. As of today, Matt Stafford was practicing, which resulted. We were talking about it in some just ridiculous comments on Twitter, but he is officially on the practice field as of today.
Some interesting conspiracy theories on Twitter from I believe Rams fans, basically accusing him of being cloned, or some people suggesting that he needs to hold up a newspaper with a date on it or whatever. Some funny interactions on there, but yeah, Stafford's back. That's huge. I mean, that's been one thing that we've been kind of keeping a pulse on, and we've said if Stafford's healthy, then this team's potential is Super Bowl. That's the team's potential, in my opinion, at the current moment. And he's back at practice, which is a step in the right direction. But the question is, at this point, at this age in Stafford's career, can he play all 17 games? That's what I'm interested in. They do have Jimmy G as a backup who also has his own injury issues. And Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett out there playing full preseason games. Yeah. Throwing game-winning touchdowns with 5 seconds remaining or whatever. But if this team wants to get where it needs to go, it's going to be with Stafford. So it's going to be something we're going to be covering this year, man. Can he stay healthy? And not just like, is he playing? Because Stafford plays a lot and not healthy like that. He's been doing that his entire career. That's why we're talking about it. And now you add the 37 years of age. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. And personally, obviously, we never root for injuries, but I'm specifically hoping Stafford stays healthy because I think the potential of this Rams team is again, it's winning the NFC and making the Super Bowl.
We've talked about that in our over-unders where we were kind of given the caveat of if Stafford's out there or not. And yeah, it's good to see that he's practicing because that gives him a few weeks before the season actually starts. But I think it's going to be one of those situations where kind of every time he takes a hit, you're going to be wincing a little bit and watching him to see how he gets up, because back injuries are scary, man. Like that is, and I think he may have dealt with one in the past in Detroit, because dude was taking a beating and puts his life on the line for his team so often. But yeah, this team's ceiling is a Super Bowl with him at the helm, and hopefully a normal him, right? Because that's the other aspect here is that just like Peyton, the neck issue with Peyton cooked him at the end of his career, and he fell off a cliff. Like his 2014 to 15 was pretty drastic, and so I don't want to see that. But it wouldn't be surprising if the back affects his ability to move his hips and how he can throw.
And that's Stafford. That's been Stafford's MO since he got in the league, is that elite arm. And that hasn't fallen off yet. But like you said, with the lingering back injury, could definitely impact his arm strength.
So we'll see. And then behind him, you got Jimmy G, who can't rely on him being healthy. I think they'd probably start him just from the experience and the fact that this team is built to go win. But Stetson Bennett has actually looked pretty decent in the preseason. He did have a comeback in that game. It was against backups, but I mean, like
he's also had some awful plays in there too.
He has.
He's had some really pretty awful plays. So that's kind of been him throughout the preseason. But obviously they drafted him. He's still on his rookie deal or whatever, but it does feel like they kind of believe in the potential of Stetson
They
Bennett
do.
because, I mean, just from a high level perspective, Dakota, the Rams have to start thinking about the future after Stafford. We're literally talking about,
Yeah. A
his
back injury.
availability for 2025. So they have to start thinking about the future. And it's going to be interesting to see if Stetson Bennett is even going to be given that opportunity to be the Rams' future franchise quarterback.
And they were talking about it on the broadcast yesterday about how or maybe Saturday, but about how the Rams, like, he didn't just fall in their lap. Like, he was a guy they wanted to go get.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
they liked him a lot. Like, McVay and Les Snead liked him a lot. So it is interesting to see if they are kind of, I mean, it'd be kind of crazy in my mind, but like, we kind of, people were giving them Dart a lot. Ironically, that pick was used for Dart. But
Ooh,
people were mocking Dart a lot. But
that's
now,
not going to age well if Dart's good.
Exactly, and they won't. But like, with how much people were already like, they need to draft a quarterback, and then they don't again. It does make you wonder how much they might believe in young Stetson Bennett already on the roster there. So
yeah, that's a really good point. Because again, to your point, they could have used that pick on Dart. So it's gonna be fascinating to see how that one plays out.
cool. Any other preseason camp storylines you want to touch on, man, before we wrap up here? I'm going for a little bit, but
I think that's about it, man. We touched on a lot in this show. And I'm just ready for the real games, dude. I'm ready for the real games. I'm ready for that opening Thursday night game and to really find out what we got in these new players.
For sure, man. Reminder, next week, so we don't have a Thursday show this week. We may have a clip go out. We'll see. But then next Thursday is when we get into season preview. Yeah. So we're going to be doing division winners, Super Bowl matchup, award winners, offensive rookie of the year, all that stuff. So should be a lot of fun. And then the following week, we have football. So on September 4th, Thursday, we'll do our first weekly preview show. So at 7 Eastern, we will go live, previewing pretty much, we'll probably spend time more on some matchups than others, but trying to preview that slate of games for that week, leading you right into Thursday Night Football's kickoff. And then that Sunday, we'll do our recap right after the 4 o'clock window ends. So we are ready for football and then just immediately talk about it, dude. It's almost here.
I know, and I'm really excited for the season preview. We're going to touch a little bit on every team when we're talking about the divisions, so it's going to be fun to go over that. And yeah, man, ready for this upcoming NFL season.
Yeah, ready for the season preview show to definitely not make certain fan bases upset. We don't think their team's going to win a Super Bowl or win the division. All my Titans fans abandoned me when I was finished last in the division.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen that fan bases don't love when you're not 100% positive. But hey, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be honest. We're trying to give our honest opinions out here in the world of hot takes.
Yeah, which is apparently tough waters to tread. Because it seems like some people want that, but who knows? But yeah, appreciate everybody who tuned in. We just jumped up in viewers a little bit here at the end. But for anybody just joined, we're kind of wrapping up here.
Yeah,
appreciate everybody.
Go back and watch the rest of the show if you don't mind.
And then tune in next Thursday for the season preview show. We'll probably hype that up a good bit. Really want to get people in there for that. That'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, everybody that tuned in live tonight or watching this after the fact, really appreciate you joining. Shout out Nate V again for being active in chat with us. We love that. So anybody else who's been watching, feel free to comment. Please share with your friends, and then hit that subscribe button. We jumped up a few subscribers, but we got a lot of people. We get a lot of views lately,
watching, but
subscribers,
subscribing.
Yeah, I know you're probably fans of certain teams, but we'll touch on them too. Especially when we get into the season, we're going to touch on pretty much every team constantly and throughout the season. So keep that in mind when we get into those. So please hit that subscribe button. We appreciate all the support nonetheless. But until next time.
Thanks for talking ball with us.